Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Welcome. So tonight I want to talk about one can call the three phases or the three motivations for liberation that we go through as we enter into spiritual life and on through to the recognition of the self. These three phases or these three motivations take us through three transitions. The first one happens when we realize that our outward search hasn't really satisfied us. It's not providing whatever it is our heart needs. And this is when we take up the search. And so we take up spiritual practice, or we take up spiritual life in some way. And during this time, our motivation is primarily the end of suffering. So what this looks like is that we are primarily motivated by a desire to heal our bodies physically, to heal our emotions, to heal our relationships. We are looking for an alternative to the way that we have been seeking. And we are narrowing the field from the world itself, from chasing after experiences, trying to find pleasure, trying to avoid pain. And we come into some spiritual recognition that there is another way. There can be another way, or perhaps there's another way. And so we begin to explore. But the motivation is still primarily to end our suffering, to end the difficulties that we've been facing. And this is the first phase. The transition that has to happen now is that we go through our spiritual practices, we do what we're doing, some glimpses of the truth, of the recognition of the self shine through, but they're very unstable. They're just glimpses. But what they provide for us is enough of an insight that we say to ourselves, oh, there's something else. There really is something else. We begin to believe that there is something else, that perhaps we're not going to find the happiness we're looking for in the world, in the experiences, in the relationship, in the job, in the business. Perhaps we won't find it there. But we begin to, through these glimpses, we begin to see that perhaps we can find it here. And so we intensify our practice in some way. The motivation here is the recognition that the search for truth is real, and that there's a real possibility that we will be able to find it in this life. This becomes the motivation. Now we're not so interested in maybe solving the problems or perfecting the body or finding the perfect relationship or finding the perfect job. We become less interested in that, those outward looking behaviors. And we begin to look more deeply inside. And the motivation is that we've had some small glimpses. And so what we're looking for now is to see whether these glimpses are real and true and whether they can stabilize. And so we recommit but now the motivation is not the end of suffering, the motivation is liberation. And is this possible for me? The third phase is when we move into the stabilization of those glimpses. And we do this, the motivation then is the realization of the self. So now there's an acceptance of whatever comes our way in terms of body, mind, and world as the foundation for the realization of the self. And now there's not even the motivation for liberation or for awakening or for enlightenment or whatever we happen to be calling it in the second phase. That becomes less of a carrot, you can say, or less of a sweetie that's carrying us on, because there is an actual realization that we have these moments of peace, calm, happiness, and bliss within ourselves. And that all that's necessary now is that we somehow find a way to stabilize these. We somehow move into a space where we sit in the heart of being as the self, and everything else goes on around that. This is the phase where we realize, where the seeker realizes not that there is any more seeking going on, but rather, I am the self. I am the self alone. There's only the self. Now, this may not be completely stable at this time, but there is this recognition from time to time that all that is necessary for liberation is this recognition of awareness itself, which is here. This is the I am recognition, right? That I am moment when there is no need for anything else other than this deep recognition, this deep awareness of being consciousness as I am. The recognition of the Supreme as I am. And this may not be completely stable. It may not be stable for some time, even for some years. You can read about this sometimes in the lives of saints and sages, that there was a period of time, 4 years, 5 years, 6 years, 10 years, where they were largely stable in the self, but there was still some doubt was coming and going. You can even read this in the life of the Buddha. So this was coming and going for some period of time, and then suddenly recognition is whole and complete in this moment. So you can find yourself in your journey right now, somewhere along this continuum, and going through these transitions where you move from the motivation is suffering to the motivation is liberation or enlightenment or awakening to the motivation is the realization of the self. These three phases are very distinct and they're very easily identifiable. So you can look at your own practice, your own recognition at this moment, and hopefully you can see somewhere in there where you are. And the reason that I wanted to share these with you this evening is so that you understand that this is a process to a certain degree. You are always that which is liberated. You are always that which is aware. That never changes. But the mind likes to see these steps. It enjoys these phases. It seems to go through this for many, many people. And this can happen over the course of a few days or a few weeks or a few lifetimes. But somewhere in there, you will recognize yourself. You will know that you are in this phase, or you are in this phase, or you are in this phase. And I do this because so many of the comments that we get in satsang are about the way that people have these deep recognitions of peace, of calm, of happiness, of the self, of the realization of the Supreme. And then they seem to slip back into something else, become entangled in a previous phase in some way. So this is just the natural flow until one is stabilized completely and totally in this recognition of the self as that which is aware is here now, and this I am. Until that occurs and this becomes stable, there can be this kind of fluttering around. But what I'm noticing is that people are often getting confused because they don't understand that some up and down can happen in this way. Bhagavan says, put it quite simply. He said, as long as the I arises, meet it, chop it, finish it. So whenever the I arises, inquire, who is this I? Who is this I? And this will keep you moving toward that recognition that that which you are is that which is aware. It has always been here. You have always been that. So just keep moving. Understand that if it appears to you that you are you have slipped back a little bit into some old habits or some old ways of thinking or some old ways of being, that this is quite natural in this process. This is the moment to ask this question: who is aware here? What is aware here? Who am I? What is this I that I'm referring to when I think I have slipped back into an unawakened, unliberated state? And just come back into this recognition. That which is aware is here now, and relax, rest. Let awareness itself in its pristine state do the work for you. Once you realize that you are here, you are now, and that awareness is here, then relax. Let awareness do the work. You don't have to do it. You can put that you aside and let yourself rest in the heart of being and know that this awareness which you are is doing the work. Okay? All right, questions? Comments?
Yes.
Hello, Honor. Yes, please go ahead.
Lovely to see you're well. You're looking healthy. Good to see.
That's a relative term these days, but thank you.
Yes, but you're looking healthier. Good. Very happy to see that. A lesson was given here, or this with your illness with impermanence, or actually released grief. A huge amount of grief had to be released. So it triggered a massive amount of grief which came out the body. Lots, actually. So listening to what you were saying, yes, I noticed that more light's coming in every now and then wow, it just pushes out stuff. I just find myself bursting into tears out of absolute nowhere. So all these patterns and traumas stored in the body are just releasing, especially at the moment. It's a big one. But what you said just now made me think, because I got to that stage where I laughed and realized, yes, there isn't anyone to be saved. So that part is there.
Right.
There isn't anyone that needs to be saved. It never was. It doesn't exist. As you say, it's just a matter of it falling away now. It's just a matter of the habit or the thing. But yes. I've noticed all those things you said. Yeah, they're all patterns, and I think karmic trends and all kinds of other things. Who knows? Yeah. They're coming up. Plenty. And the crying part, whatever you would say, the purging. It's just is this the light dissolving all those all the suffering, basically, just being released or transmuted?
Yes, and this happens in different ways for different beings. Okay. So for some there's a lot of grief, for some there's a deep sadness, for others there's just a state of confusion. But the important thing is to realize in that moment that if you inquire in that moment, who is it that's having this experience? You come to this recognition that the experience is happening, so there's no denial about that. It's very real. It feels very real, but it can be seen that you are the witness of the experience, not the experience itself. So this is the important thing to take away about those moments where this releasing or purging is going on. Yeah, very good.
Okay. Oh, it's fun. It's difficult not to, because you kind of feel guided to, in order to release it, you've got to identify, okay, yeah, and release it because it happened.
Well, yes, yeah, but it's all, I agree with you that it's difficult, but it's also important to realize that the difficulty is the identification in the mind with what's being experienced. It's not the experience itself. It's the
Yeah.
level of identification you have with the body, with the mind, with the experiences. That's what creates the perception of difficulty. If there's a simple and direct and powerful, steady witnessing of what's happening in the experience, then this difficulty sheds itself. It doesn't become difficult. It is simply something that is rising in awareness or consciousness itself, and it's passing. So always understand that the degree of difficulty that you're facing is not related to something that's real. It's related to a belief in the mind or the heart.
Yeah,
So,
it's just past experiences or past hurts or traumas leaving it. They're just being released basically from the vessel.
yes, yes, but again, this is based in the belief of a past.
Yeah,
You are believing that the past is real.
Yeah, it's the mind.
Rather than the belief that the past is the past and what came and stayed for a period of time and left. If that's your belief, there's very little difficulty and there's very little suffering. The degree to which you suffer or experience difficulty is based upon this mental construct of difficulty. So it's really, yes. So you have to keep that in mind if you really want to propel yourself quickly. If you need to stay in something for a period of time, you need to experience a certain level of difficulty and so on. This is fine, but understand what the source of it is. It's not the experience itself. It's the belief that there is an I and that this I suffered this experience in the past and now has some trauma that's a result of that and needs to go through some process to release it. That's a belief structure. So as the sooner you are able to unravel that belief structure just by dropping it or by just having this conversation with yourself, then the less you will suffer and the quicker it will end.
Thank you.
And you will move on. Yeah.
Yeah, that advice I needed. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah. Of course. Good pointers. Hello, John. Hello, JB.
Yeah, good morning, Rishi.
Good morning. Good morning. How's everything this week?
Oh, well, it's good. I'm learning a lot or seeing a lot. And I have a question along the lines of what we were just talking about. So I thought I would try to get right here with it. In the language you were just using, that belief in that these things that happen to us last, that they stick with us, is what makes them stick with us.
Yes.
Yes. And that we identify with the thing that happened because we remember it as belonging to us.
Yes.
Okay. So that belonging can then create maybe an unconscious fear that we try to avoid. Does that seem plausible?
That fear is what?
Oh, whatever, like if we have some pain in that we identify with, then we could have an unconscious avoidance, which then could be somewhat of a veil between us and this place of identifying with the self and not the individual or not the identity of the pain.
Yes, definitely.
Is that making sense?
Yes. Yeah, sometimes there is a natural avoidance that comes from having gone through some trauma or something. And I'll use myself as an example. Almost everyone here knows I went through the Vietnam War. And so I will definitely have a tendency in my life to avoid war. That's an extreme example. But, there are certain experiences you only need to have once. And you don't need to have them again. And that's not an avoidance. That's just a recognition of the truth of the situation. So understand that, you're absolutely right.
And in this, as you talked about the phases, this feels like it falls in that first phase where there's a desire to go and sort of purge or heal or clear that fear, or that pain that generates the fear.
Yes.
That part of the illusion of identifying with the self.
This is identifying with the self as an individual, as a
Yes.
separate
So.
individual.
Little me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. And now here's where I get confused. We could have an experience, we can have this deep in our unconscious and be operating on it and not realize that's ushering us or encouraging us to be in our little our in our individuated self.
Yes.
So does one need to address that then to go in this sort of phase one that you described and try and find this and clear it, or does one just wait it out?
So no, well, to answer your question in terms of what I said earlier, in this phase, there is definitely this avoidance of suffering kind of motivation, right? And this is often mistaken as the idea that I should go back into my past, or I should go into the event of that trauma or that suffering, consciously or unconsciously, and I should clear it myself. But understand that the motivation for liberation is not yours either. You are not the one who wanted liberation. Somehow, life itself presented the opportunity to you to realize that there is something else besides this process of clearing the past and dealing with trauma and ending suffering. And this comes about through glimpses of liberation. And then finally, there's this recognition, well, I can spend forever going back and trying to understand the trauma, clearing it out, doing this, doing that, doing this process, doing that process. I can spend forever doing that, or I can just say, oh, I've had these glimpses of realization and they are what is true for me. They are real. And so I will come into the next phase, in which the motivation is liberation itself. I don't care whether I clear anything or not. My motivation is to be liberated. My motivation is to wake up in this life, not to spend another 10 lifetimes looking back. Sri Nisargadatta Maharaj said, if you get ready to throw out the garbage, you don't need to look through the bag. Okay?
Yeah.
And so this is a very clear instruction that once you realize that the goal of your life is not to solve all the problems or to achieve something, but is to realize the already true liberated nature of your own being, then you don't need to look through the bag of trash anymore. You just keep going toward liberation. And then these glimpses become bigger experiences, moments, hours, days, in which this recognition of the self is present. And then it fades again. But it leaves behind this indelible mark, which says, I am that which is aware here and now. And then the motivation becomes to simply become firm and stable in the heart of being. So that's why I talk about these phases.
Yeah. Forgive me, everyone, if I may ask one more question. I don't mean to take too much time, but
Go ahead, it's your time. Whose time is it anyway?
well, to add some clarity there, and I don't mean to make this about me specifically, but to add context, there was an unexpected moment of acute pain. And in that moment, I saw this thing that seemed like I had felt for the duration of this life. And yet I saw it in a way that I had not identified before. And I recognized maybe I have been avoiding that. And it was just physical pain that I can recognize at the moment. But it was extremely acute. And that's what generates this question, was like, as though I saw this thing that I had been carrying that I was avoiding, is what it felt like. And maybe this is the foolishness of identifying with that pain, but that the avoidance of that pain then prevented me from being fully present in the moment. Does that make sense?
It does, but it's not, it does, but I want to reframe it for you.
Thank you.
The liberation mind, if you will, or the liberation heart, needs to be aware that when these moments arise, the question is, or maybe the recognition in the mind that can be most helpful is, oh, good, there was that. That's been hiding for a long time here. Now, what the ego does with that is it wants to go and dig and dig and dig and dig and dig and say, why was I hiding and what was I avoiding and blah, 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 blah. This is the ego's co-opting the insight that there was some drama, some trauma, some past experience wrapped up in this pain. And now you have just brought it up. You have achieved a level of freedom, a level of freedom from fear that can allow this kind of bubbling up to happen. But you don't need to grab the bubble as it goes by. You just need to let the bubble float up until it hits its natural moment of stress and pops. And now it's gone. So, oh, thank you. I saw that. Okay, I've been hiding from that for a long time. I'm not hiding from that anymore. Period. End of story. Be grateful for the insights that come your way. Be grateful for the drama that sometimes comes into our hearts and sometimes comes into our mind. Be grateful for that, not for the pain that it causes, but for the liberation it represents. We have come far enough along in this motivation toward enlightenment or awakening that we are now willing to let what needs to come. We will deal with it if we need to deal with it, but we definitely want to just let it go. We don't want to grab a hold of it and begin a different story of identification with whatever that trauma or drama may have been. We want to be able to say, ah, good, I see that. Now I'm free of it. And if it comes again, I will stand in it and I will let that bubble pass again. So remember that the foundation of our practice in Advaita is always allow what comes to come. It will stay for a period of time. That doesn't mean you make it stay by investigating it, by digging into it, by identifying with it. It means that you witness it for however long it wants to stay, whether it's a moment or a minute or an hour or a day or a week. And then but our practice is always to be aware of the end of it and to see the end as a complete moment. A moment of completion is maybe a better way to put it. So whatever we are experiencing as the pure witness or the pure awareness state is allowing what is there to come up, allowing it to stay for a period of time so that we can have this kind of insight about it and allowing it to go. This is the foundation practice.
Thank you.
Don't cling to anything. Just let the bubbles keep coming and popping, coming and popping, coming and popping. And don't get identified with the bubbles coming and popping and coming and popping. The only identification you want at this stage, which is kind of this phase 2 that I was talking about at this level of motivation toward enlightenment, the only thing you really want to do is stabilize in becoming the witness, in being able to witness what is here, being able to see it clearly, and being able to let it go. In order to do this, we remain in the heart of clear seeing. This is the way.
Thank you. And thank you all.
Thank you, JP. Turn on your microphone. Hello?
Swamiji, can you hear me?
Yes. Go ahead.
Yeah, how are you, Swamiji?
Very good, thank you.
Um, just now you said, Swamiji, that um, uh, to abide in the awareness and let the awareness do itself. So my question is, I don't know how to abide in the awareness, Swamiji. I'm feeling it very difficult to abide in the awareness. And another question I have, you said that self is inherently peaceful and desireless. And I don't feel like that. I have desires. I'm not peaceful. So can I assume that I am peaceful and I am desireless and align my activities according to that? Like,
Yes.
like fake it till I make it. Can I do like that? Because I don't because I don't know
So
how to do it.
I wouldn't call that faking it until you make it. I would call that being aware of the truth and also being aware of the lie. Yeah, yeah. So let me ask you this question. Are you aware?
I am aware, Swamiji, but I don't know how to abide in the awareness because I always find something else, something else. I'm seeing something else. I don't know to abide in awareness.
So just answer yes or no. Are you aware?
Yeah, I am aware.
Yes, you are aware. So between this question, am I aware, and the answer yes, which comes in the mind, there is a small gap. You
Yes,
maybe don't see it yet, but that
yes,
small gap is there. So when I say to you, are you aware? You say,
yes,
yes, you know it. So
yeah,
you are always abiding as awareness. It is always there in the background. What you are looking at is your thoughts, your desires, your emotions, and you are saying, that is who I am. But
yes,
if you ask yourself 100 times in a day, am I aware? This gap will be there. This will be pure awareness. And then the answer, yes, comes. This is enough for now. Don't fight and struggle with your mind. That's a distraction. Just let your mind alone. Let it be whatever it is. But remember to ask yourself 100 times a day, am I aware? And look, really look, am I aware? This is not a mantra. You have to look. Am I aware? Yes. Now you are here again. Go on with whatever happens after that. But a few minutes later, if you feel yourself distracted, if the mind is going crazy, the desires are rising, ask yourself again, am I aware? Ah, yes. Okay, go on. If you do this over and over, day in and day out, for many, many weeks, or whatever it is for you, but it usually happens for most people very quickly in a matter of just a few days or a few weeks. You begin to get this sense of what that gap feels like, that space between am I aware and yes. And you begin to settle into that peace, into that calm. And that's where the assumption that you are peaceful and calm comes from. It's not an assumption in the mind, it's a direct experience. Okay?
yeah,
Start with the very basic, simple practice of am I aware? Yes. And keep coming back to that. If you have to do it 100 times a day, 200 times a day, but each time you do it, be sure you look. Don't just go, am I aware? Yes, like a mantra, this is not going to help you. This is just a thought. You have to go, am I aware? And you have to look. Yes, I am aware. Okay, fine. Go on. These small moments will one day blossom into a great lotus flower, and you will remain as awareness itself, even as everything goes on around you and in you. There will be a deep-seated, the flower of the lotus of the heart will open, and you will sit in that space of awareness, no matter what is coming through the mind or body or happening in the world of experience. Okay?
Even that I am joyful, I am blissful. I can understand by the mind, but I don't experience it. So can I assume
Just
that I
forget
am
it for
happy?
now. You just need to forget it for now. Start with I am aware.
Yeah.
If you ask this question, am I aware? And you become familiar with this gap, it's not going to be a long time before you see yourself as happy and you see the joy within your own heart. It's there underneath all of this thinking, underneath all of this desiring. It's there under that. So if you use this question, am I aware, as a way to stop in the moment, to be here now, free from thought, free from desire, free from emotion, just for a moment. And slowly, this is a planting of a seed, and slowly this grows into a great tree.
Okay.
Okay, try it.
Yeah, if I ask myself if I am aware, I always find that I'm aware of something else, like my body, breathing, then thoughts. Only that I'm holding on. I don't know to be aware of myself.
So I don't want when you ask yourself, am I aware? I want the point of the question is not to notice what you are aware of, your breathing, your body. No, that's not the point. Notice just the awareness. If I ask you right now, are you aware? And you look for the awareness. Don't look at the body. Don't look at the breath. Don't look at whatever. Just look at the awareness itself. Can you do it?
Okay, Swamiji, I understand what you say, and I will do it.
Very good. Try it.
Thank you, Swamiji.
Yes. We want to get, for everyone, you want to get to the place where you understand that you are the awareness itself. It makes no difference what you are aware of. Your body, your sensation, your emotions, your experience, it makes no difference for this purpose. It makes a difference in your ordinary everyday life. But for the purpose of knowing who you are, you just need to come to this moment of pristine awareness or naked awareness. And this is a way to do that. Ask this question, am I aware? Notice that gap, yes. And then everything goes on as normal. But the interesting thing is that the more often you ask this question, am I aware? And the answer yes comes, the more often you are establishing yourself in the witness position or the observer position. So now as things come and go, you're less likely to get drawn into them. You're more likely to stay in the heart of being and allow what comes to come and what goes to go. And this is the foundation of the recognition of the self. Okay? This is clear to everyone? Yes?
Hello,
Yes, hello?
can you hear me? Because
Yes.
okay, so in many ways I have been talking with many people in different paths, like Reiki or Vipassana, transcendental meditation. I've been talking about ego. So I say that in my path, ego must be eliminated. But they say that ego shouldn't be eliminated, but we have to learn to live with ego and control the ego. But I'm not very mm, this is for me it's not good. It's not true. Uh, and in my opinion, ego must be eliminated. So, can you tell me about this in
So
your
yeah,
opinion?
I prefer the word transcended rather than eliminated, because the ego has
Yeah,
a function. You know,
yeah,
ego has a function. So ego is nothing more than a bundle of thoughts. I am the
yeah,
body, it being the first one. So this is a false assumption. You are not the body. You are being,
yeah,
consciousness, and bliss. So
yeah.
this indicates a transcendence, not an elimination. So
Uh-huh.
the ego is
Yeah,
there. It has a purpose. You can use the ego like you can use any other tool. You can use the mind to add up 2 plus 2 plus 2 equals 6. That does not mean the mind is bad. That's just a function of the mind. Well, this perception of ego is also a function of the mind.
yeah,
So it's not inherently bad. Therefore, it doesn't need to be eliminated. It simply needs to be understood where its place is. And to be understood is to say, I am just a bundle of thoughts. There is no such thing as an ego. Just if I don't identify with these thoughts, then who am I? If I don't believe I am these thoughts, but I am still here, and this awareness is still here, then who is this I? This is the proper
yeah.
use of this term ego.
Mm-hmm. But is there only one ego? No, no individual egos, I think.
There, there
Uh,
is no ego. So I'm not going to say there is only one ego. No, there is no ego. This
yeah,
is a psychological term that's used to describe a constellation or a group of thoughts that you have about your experience as a body mind.
yeah,
If you don't believe these thoughts about who you think you are, then you see that this ego
yeah,
just dissolves. It's just a bundle of thoughts. But something is aware of those thoughts. What is that? This is advaita. This is
yeah,
Bhagavan's teaching. What is aware
yeah.
of what the psychologists are calling an ego? What is aware of that? If you take up this
Okay,
practice, then the ego easily dissolves. And you
yeah,
see that it was something that you didn't really need in the first place. It is a
yeah,
tool that you can use if you want to or you need to. You can put on this suit of beliefs about who you are as a body and a mind, but ultimately you come to realize that you are nothing that you believed you were. You are this being consciousness or this awareness itself, which is here prior to the belief in an ego.
yeah. I agree with you that it's better to use the word dissolve or transcend the ego
Yes,
than
yes.
eliminate or destroy.
In this
Yeah.
case, yes, in this case, they both mean the same thing. To transcend the ego is to dissolve the ego. To dissolve the
Dissolve.
ego is to
Yeah.
transcend the ego. This is synonymous with one with the other. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, because
yep.
in fact we the only tool that we have to transcend the ego is the ego itself because who is who want
Well,
to no.
yes, but um, to say that I'm going to use the ego to dissolve the ego is like saying I'm
Yeah,
going to send a thief to catch a thief. It's not going,
yeah.
it's not going to happen. The
Yeah,
only way to dissolve or transcend the ego is to stop feeding it, stop giving it
yeah,
attention. This is the only way to transcend the ego, is to understand that it's not real. It's a psychological term that was made up to try to talk about the experiences that we have as individuals. But it's based in the belief that there is a separate individual. And if we no longer believe or accept that there is a separate individual, then there's no need for the ego term. Okay? Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. It's a joy. It's a joy to stay here with you.
Yeah, language is both liberating and constricting. So over time, we learn to look very carefully at the way that we use language and what we believe about it, because language can both trap us and it can liberate us. So we want to see when we are holding concepts which are limiting us, which are trapping us in the belief that I am the body or I am the mind. Then we want to be able to recognize that it's not wrong. We are not stupid. We have not done something wrong. We just want to be able to see that that conditioning is working. And then we can use the languaging to liberate ourselves, to say that I am the self, or to say that which is aware is here now. These thoughts lead to the natural liberation of the self, that which is already here. So now we are using language in a way that is very positive, but understand that what we're doing is we are taking language all the way to the limit where language no longer applies. And then when we step off the language cliff, there is only one thing left from that moment, and that actually is silence.
Okay.
Language will only take us so far, and then we have to step immediately into the self.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, keep going, Alberto. You're doing great. Hello, Vamshi.
Hello, Swamiji. I joined after watching a few of your YouTube videos. So in this
Welcome.
practice that you were talking about, am I aware? And then, yes, I am aware. Is there another way to do that? Meaning, why go about this whole roundabout way to know? Because we know we are awareness. Or is it the same as just focusing on the awareness that is looking from behind our eyes as much as possible? That seems to be even shorter than this.
Yes, I agree with that. Understand that the reason that I talk about this in satsang is because many people have never ever looked. If you have already this ability to be that which is aware looking out, and you already have that as a direct perception, and by all means, please do that. That's the direct method. This method is for people who have never actually taken them a moment to look within and see that they are aware.
Right. And like saying, the challenge is in the identification, right? From time to time. Yes, this is the thing to do, but it is without any bells and whistles or our experiences or pointers. It is more like a steady peace of mind, but there is nothing really that is exciting in it to stay in it for the mind. So it becomes a challenge, I suppose, for us to basically get away from this addiction with the mind, which looks for some kind of an excitement, and come to this thing, which is a pretty steady, peaceful thing. In it, pretty much nothing is actually happening, but it's peaceful, and we kind of train our mind to go away from the excitement to this steady calm, and do it again and again and again and again, and wait for things to develop, I suppose. Is that how we should think about it?
Yes, in some way. I mean, I understand that you're explaining it in a way that has meaning for you. And so, yes, I agree with that. That's definitely the case, is that the more we become able to sit in this this pure awareness state, or this naked awareness state is maybe a better way of putting it. Naked awareness before thoughts, before thinking, before identification. The more we are able to stay in that state, as a form of sadhana, the more we are able to come back to it, to rest, relax, be open in that state, and be there as the simple, aware observer, the more quickly the belief in a separate identity, a separate me, dissolves. And then this is the gateway to the self. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes. Very good. Very good. Hello, Ron.
Hey, Rishiji.
Mhm.
I'm not sure if I recall what the third phase is, but I'm pretty sure I'm either like dancing around between the first and the second. Um, so how is I'm blanking on how I'm supposed to use this, so to speak, pointer.
Okay, very briefly, the third phase that I'm referring to is when the motivation switches from enlightenment. You know, I am going to become enlightened. I'm going to do these spiritual practices. I'm going to, I'm going to take up when the motivation switches from that to abiding as awareness itself or abiding as the self, that becomes the motivation. This requires that pre-recognition that these experiences of these glimpses of the self become stable. So this is the motivation in the third phase. So we move from I am escaping suffering to I am seeking enlightenment to I am that which is aware, or I am that which is already here.
Okay, so it definitely now seems like more the third, but again, it's any thought that arises is usually related to the first. I don't think my mind even thinks in the second phase terminology anymore, but it's definitely still chasing pleasures and trying to avoid displeasures or pain. But I'm seeing more and more.
Very good. Just keep going.
I'm still acting on it.
Well, so then the question you have to ask yourself at that point, Ron, is if you're still acting on those kinds of motivations, then if it were me, what I would ask myself, and what I did ask myself years ago, is what is my purpose in this, how am I going to use this life? Because if I'm undisciplined and I keep going back into chasing after those pleasures and avoiding those pains, I am not going to succeed in liberation because that takes too much energy. So the question becomes important then. What is my purpose? What do I want? What am I going to use this life for? Because I promise you that if you are really strong in your intention to remain as the self, to remain as being consciousness, you cannot have one foot in one world and the other foot in the other world. You cannot be saying, I'm going to realize the self in this lifetime, but I think I'll just hold on to these pleasures over here. This is not going to work because you will always be at cross purposes. However, what can happen over time, if you permit it, is that the lesser, for lack of a better word, the lower energy desires and so on, they will dissolve, but only if there's a willingness to let them dissolve. And by letting them dissolve, I don't mean pushing them away. I mean recognizing that whatever is here is okay. Whatever isn't here is okay. I'm not pursuing anything in the realm of body, mind, or world. I am simply saying, I am going to focus the attention of this incarnation, for lack of a better word, on the recognition or realization of the self. And this is enough. You don't even have to have it. It doesn't even have to be that complicated. I am aware, I'm in this life to realize the self. If you simply understand what I'm saying when I say that, if you keep asking this question, am I aware? And you keep allowing this space of naked awareness to open and expand, those bubbles, like I said to JB, those bubbles will come up. They will just burst. because you're not doing anything with them. It's the same with other desires. If you let them come up, the only way that something can be sustained in your life is if you give it attention. If you don't give it attention, there's nothing to sustain it, and it begins to disintegrate. But what happens for most people is if I lose the desire for an intimate partner, if I lose the desire for my business, if I lose the desire for a family, if I lose these desires, the fear that comes up is I will be nothing. I will be nobody. I will have no existence in the world. This is a terror that comes up. And it comes up unrecognized and drives us right back into the behaviors that we were involved in before. So we've gone through relationship a dozen times and we've been destroyed every time, but we keep going back to that well to try to get another drink, a few minutes of pleasure. But if we really understand that what we are here for is the liberation in being consciousness, then what can happen is we can say, it doesn't matter if I go to that well or not. It's none of my business. And then this kind of samskara or tendency can begin to dissolve. But again, in that dissolution of the tendency can come this fear that if I don't keep identifying with this tendency, I will be destroyed. This will come up. And this can be very strong. And it can drive us right back into the tendency again. So we have to become more and more aware of what is going through our mind, what is going through our experience, what is going through as a form of conditioning, what is going through that we are attaching to or we are rejecting. And we have to come to this place where we stand in the middle of whatever is here, whatever is swirling around, whatever is rising and falling. And we identify with only one aspect of experience. I am that which is aware, and I'm not very interested in what I'm aware of. And then this process of dissolution can begin to happen.
And if separate question, I guess, if I'm interacting with someone on the path and they seem to be more in the first phase, what is the best way I can serve them?
I find it very helpful. I work with a lot of people who are in the first phase. And I find it very useful to ask people, what is the purpose of your existence? And often in people, when they're in the first phase, they say, I want a relationship. I want to get married. I want a family. I want to start my own business. I want to learn to play guitar. These are the kinds of responses you get. And so this person is still seeking in some way to end their suffering by finding a more pleasurable way of enjoying the world that they're living in. So they've switched over to a more spiritual orientation, but it's really to solve the problems of pain and suffering in their lives, finding some new partner, new way of being, new place to go visit, new practice, whatever, new something that will fundamentally end some aspect of their sense of suffering. So this person is still in this first phase, and you can listen to their stories. You can listen to what they're saying will solve the problem for them. And eventually, if there is a correct moment, a powerful moment, a moment of inspiration, you can say, is that what you really want? Is that what your life is about? Is just to find that perfect person or that family, that fictitious family, and you can just approach it that way. But understand that a lot of what we do for people, especially in these early stages of seeking, is we are just present as awareness itself in the space, because if we are here as being consciousness, and we are holding the space, and that space can be called love, then what happens is that this, again, please don't get caught in the words, but this lower vibration will begin to rise up in the space of unconditional love and surrender. This is the foundation of satsang. This is the foundation of direct transmission of the recognition of self. Is that the sage only sits in the recognition of the self, provides some small amount of guidance when it's appropriate, when a person is open to it, ready for it, otherwise remains silent and quiet, remains loving and compassionate. This is not to accept the story that the person is saying about, well, this is what my life is about, or this is what I want, or this is what my desire is. This is so that this person can stay in the space of this loving vibration long enough for their vibration to begin to rise. For this second phase motivation of I'm not interested in ending my suffering, I'm interested in gaining enlightenment. For this second phase motivation to begin to dawn on them. You see, it will dawn on them in their own time, because the motivation to awaken comes out of the first recognition that awakening is possible. Awakening is what I want. This is coming from the heart of being. This is not coming from the mind. Nobody wants enlightenment from the mind. It's dangerous. Nobody wants that. The ego knows, the mind knows that enlightenment or awakening means it's death. So nobody wants enlightenment. People say, I want enlightenment. But when it actually is sitting in front of them, no, not yet. Please let me keep my other foot back here in the world. I don't want it. Please don't give it to me now. Maybe later. Come back in a year. Come back in 10 years. Not now. First, let me find my perfect partner. First, let me find, let me build my company. First, let me, it's like that. Nobody really wants enlightenment until they move from the first phase of the motivation is the end of suffering. They move into the second phase where the motivation is liberation, right? Then it becomes possible to have these deeper conversations with people. When I look out here at all of you that have taken the time to come here, you say, well, I still am struggling with this phase one kind of behavior and desire. I say, no, not so much, because you're sitting here. Understand that some of that may still be there a little bit. Just don't identify with it. For you, it's easy. Don't identify with that. You are here. If you are here, your aspiration has already turned toward enlightenment. You are not going to go back. You are not going to step back out into the world, never come to another satsang, never listen to another spiritual teacher. You are not going to do that. It's too late for you. Yay. You are going to keep going now, whether it's in this lifetime or the next, whatever. You are going to keep going. So there may still be some first phase kinds of things going on, but don't sell yourself short. Those are just the burning up of what you are not. So don't identify with them. That's why this instruction is here. Don't identify with them. If you say, oh, this is a first phase tendency, okay, good. The solution is not to identify with the first phase tendency. The solution is don't identify with the first phase tendency. And remember that your motivation is liberation, and then all is well. Just keep going. You may have to look back from time to time, but looking back is not going back. Keep going forward. Keep going toward what you know to be true of yourself, is that you have the potential for liberation in this moment. Stay open to that.
Helpful. One last question. And I'm sure part of it is fear, but leading a life of a householder, so to speak, to use Ramana's phrasing or terminology. There seems to be expectation to express in certain ways, whether it's in a relationship, or work, or etc. That, like, I feel oftentimes fine just being silent, but that's not the the expectation. So it feels almost the opposite, where I need to fake the expression I have to fit, so to speak. And I'm sure there's a fear here again of trying or not fitting. But yeah, anything to add there?
Yes, because what Bhagavan Ramana said about this very question, which used to come up quite a lot, is his people would come and question him in this way about the householder life and stuff. And he said, he would say something associated with, what prevents you from asking, who am I? When you are talking to someone, or you are working at your job, or you are in a relationship with someone, what prevents you from asking, who is this I that seems to be having this experience? So that's why he said, the householder life is no barrier to liberation. It's identification with the various aspects of householder life. That's a barrier. So your task is to understand this question of I am aware, or who am I, or who am I referring to when I say I have to, who is it that feels like he has to engage, or he has to respond? Who is it that responds? Who is it that engages? The question who is always there. It's always possible in every form of experience, whether you are sitting silently in a cave doing the dance of mind, or whether you are in the world as a householder. There is no barrier to asking, who am I? Or am I aware? There's no barrier. So eliminate that belief in the mind that there is a barrier, and just do the sadhana, do the inquiry under all circumstances, until you realize that you are not anything related to the circumstances. Then you are free. Okay?
Thank you, Rishiji.
Yes, of course. Okay, my friends, we are at the end of our time. You are the one self. There is only the self. All of this is that. Nothing else exists. Come to know who you are. Make this the supreme goal of your life, and everything else will follow that. The opportunity for you to realize the self is here now. You are the self always. There is nothing but the self. In this moment of recognition that you are the self, you must hold firm until it becomes real, until you know beyond any doubt that you are this one self. Whatever the circumstances you find yourself in, however it is for you, understand, I am that which is aware. I am the one self. Everything else is coming and going. Only this is real. Hari Om. Tat Sat.